This program is brought to you by Resonance FM. If you like what you hear, please support our work by making a donation at resonancefm.com/donate.
Yeah, okay. So, should we start at the beginning?
Right.
At the beginning, what I mean by that is talk about...
Which beginning?
A folk club in an old tin mine in one of the UK's most remote places. It's 1966, and the Count House Folk Club in Cornwall is fast becoming one of British folk's most important venues. You might be thinking that a beaten up old building, just a few miles up from Land's End, is an unlikely home for the country's folk royalty. But to hundreds of music fans and many travelling artists, it was at the very centre of what's now called the British Folk Revival. So why Cornwall? What is it about this unique place that spins this magic? Who made this happen? And what can music's history teach us about its potential future? I'm Trenouth, and for the last few months I've been scouring the West Country for answers. But talking will only take you so far. For now, let's step inside.
Turn to silver bells, then will my life...
The building used to be both the stables and blacksmith's workshop for Batalak Mine, just over there down the cliffs. And the fishing nets hanging from the ceiling are just to catch rubble falling from this crumbling old space. And the singer, that's Brenda Wootton. We'll hear more about her later, but for now I'll say she's known as the Queen of Cornish music. Here's her daughter, Sue Ellery Hill, on some of her earliest memories at the club.
I don't think it would have been on her radar at all. This was a completely new thing that none of us knew about. I mean, it wasn't new to other people, some other people, but it was to us. You know, I didn't know. We could have been going to a nightclub, we could have been going to a cabaret, I didn't know. I just thought it was something new and interesting out on the cliffs. We like to do things as a family, so picnics were the big thing. The following year, the folk club opened in the Count House at Batalak. Brenda took me along. I was interested, I wanted to go, and as a 13, 14-year-old, I wouldn't have been allowed to go on my own. I wouldn't have been able to go on my own because I think that was part of the attraction, was that it was so completely out in the wilds. People didn't know, for the first time, didn't know what they were coming to, you know, and assumed they were going to end up in a farm slurry pit or something.
But it was heaven on earth. It was just something that hadn't happened before. And not only the quality of the playing, like, all these people were there any time at all. And it went through the night as well. It was magic. That would describe it, I think. Just something magical like that. And you just sat around, you could have tea and coffee.
In the morning when you're out, don't you be afraid to lie.
I don't know, it's difficult to describe really. It was just a huge part of my life. Friendship and obviously meeting John and getting to know people all over the country, you know. And, you know, they were very popular, the clubs down here, and used to run several nights a week. And I mean, sometimes, you know, like the Count House would be every night a week. People could come down you know, and they got their accommodation and like board and lodging, and they could come down and do a week, you know, whereas perhaps in other parts of the country they would be moving on each night to, you know, a new venue, and they'd be sort of on, you know, on the road all the time, whereas it was quite relaxing to come down and do
Magic, wild, relaxing. People have been coming to Cornwall looking for these things and more since the dawn of time. But what actually is it that makes this place unique? And how does this feed into the music? To understand that, we might just have to go a little further back. I met with Merv Davey, the former Bard of Cornwall, or how he's otherwise known, Dr. Folk. He's just finished a PhD about Cornish folk tradition and also runs the growing Cornish National Music Archive. He explained some of the lesser-known aspects of Cornish history and the reasons why those that lived there might historically have felt both inside and outside of England, and that this is even reflected in the name, Cornwall. The English names of both Cornwall and Wales are widely thought to have come from the same place, and as Merv explains, this is no coincidence.
As you say, the wall is the Anglo-Saxon whalers, which means foreigner. So you had the Welsh were foreigners, and the Cornish were foreigners in the Horn, Corn. And Kernow itself, that was what people in Cornwall describe Cornwall as, Kernow, and that's the land of the Horns, which you can see between Mounts Bay and West Penwith. Well, it's a tradition of being distinctive, a tradition of particularism, a tradition of being separate, which it evolves out of this history that we were talking about, the landscape and the history. On Sunday, we celebrate the 1549 rebellion, which is a point in Cornish history because in 1548 we had the Easter Rising, which was an objection to the imposition of the English language in the churches, the English prayer book and so on. And also it was the same time as the destruction of 2 colleges where the mystery plays were written, and the mystery plays were the core of Cornish identity. We've only got 4 or 5 existing survivals, but there would have been a large number written, and they were the folk entertainment, and they were in the Cornish language, so that was part of their culture. And in 1549, the Tudor state was becoming very strong, one of the most powerful nations in Europe, if you like, and they decided we're going to do it this way. The Cornish didn't want to do it this way, and they bubbled away, and there was, as I say, there was a couple of risings in Cornwall. In 1549, the same thing happened in Devon for the same idea, and when it was realised they were simply across the border, they massed together, marched across the border, and there was a major rebellion. But the significance for Cornwall is that there were probably a bigger percentage of the population was executed following that rebellion than deaths in the First World War. Wow. Exactly. It was a very, very small population. There were 900 people executed on the spot. And that, for us, that marks the end of the Cornish language. After that, it declined. And after that, we feel that our culture declined, but maybe it didn't.
This is the county of places world famous for their beauty. St. Ives, St. Blazes, St. Column, St. Hilary, St. Maurs, St. Germans, St. Anthony and Roseland. More saints in Cornwall, they say, than there are in heaven. To visit Cornwall for the first time is to visit a foreign country, a country of strange legend and tradition. This is the corner of England that is hardly English at all.
So that's the battles and the blood and so on. Now for the sweat, or maybe more accurately, the soot. and a part of Cornwall's history that is slightly better known.
Most ancient of Cornwall's industries is tin. 2,000 years ago, the men of Cornwall were trading in tin, and through the centuries they have handed down their tradition of mining skill. Some of the mines have been worked far out under the bed of the sea. Sometimes only a few feet of rock separates the miner from the sea above, and in heavy weather he can hear the thunder of the waves above his head. Around St. Austell, the white granite pits have brought a new prosperity to Cornwall. For embedded in the granite is a special clay called China clay.
You then go on to the industrialisation and Cornwall dominating the mining industry around the world. Mm-hmm. And all those things are part of the landscape and part of the identity that creates the Cornwall that we know today. Mm-hmm.
Now, down in the West Country, they've got a one-man revolution in the folk world, and this bloke has come up this evening. He's going to sing one of his own songs called the Oggie Man, which translated means the guy who sells the Cornish pasties. Cyril Tawney.
It's now the early 60s, and folk music is starting to take hold around the country. And this guy, Cyril Tawney, is one of the first to put the West Country on the folk map.
Well, the rain softly falling, and the Oggie man's no more. I can't hear him calling like I used to before. I came through the gateway.
Whether or not it's true, I don't know. But Cyril Tawney was a Navy man, and it's said that his unique style of fingerpicking was intended to mimic the piston sound made by the submarines that he served on. It was at sea that he developed his lifelong love and interest in traditional English music. But a voice like that, you're just born with.
And the Oggie man's no more. It was here that she told me when she bade
Boys followed their fathers, uncles and elder brothers into the mines. William Laurie started here at Levant the day he was 14.
They had 4 male voice choirs here in this district, and most of the men worked in the mine. And when they travelled the men engine, they all started to sing, and the sound that you heard as it came up through the shaft was out of this world.
If you could stand on top of that shaft and listen
rich. It was rich. Some never used to believe in church and chapels or anything like that. Yet they would join in the hymns, you know, and everybody's heart and soul in it. Yes.
When Ian Todd bought what eventually became the Count House Folk Club, I can bet that he wasn't thinking about these Cornish choir members singing their way back up the shaft. He was, by all accounts, quite a ruthless businessman, and described the acquisition in the Cornish Review as 2 acres of land, a large silted pond, a crumbling barn, and a number of outbuildings. The Guardian would come a few years later and described Batalak as one of the strangest landscapes in the country. Generations of mining beneath this tin coast had more or less destroyed all plant life on the surface, with much of the greenery turned brown and lifeless. That same article, a review of one of the club's all-night sessions, would later say that life has returned to the long-deserted heart of the mines. On my visits earlier this year, it was pointed out to me that the grass has regrown and is green again. Here's Des Hannigan, one of the original Count House residents, talking about how it all started.
I mean, Ian started it under the name Place for Family Entertainment. Shipped in an old piano in the hopes families would come. Because in those days, youngsters were not allowed in pubs in the evening. Mm-hmm. So he noticed that, you know, families wandering around what to do in the evening. So he started it like that, and he realised very quickly that he couldn't just expect people to come and entertain themselves. That was when he decided to hunt around for singers, and he got John the Fish and Terry Mann.
So it wouldn't be right at this point not to dwell for just a moment on John the Fish. At the start of this programme I asked the question, who made this happen, and the short answer possibly is that he did.
I came down to Cornwall early one year, me mate, me guitar and me, to earn a fortune, lead an open-air life, rocking on the rolling sea.
He moved from London to Cornwall in the early 60s and started work as a cray fisherman. When Ian Todd asked him to come and sing at the Count House each night, he had to decide between the two.
Now you hear me singing this song, singing it every day. Had it all worked out, we just couldn't go wrong, but the fish didn't see it that way.
John the Fish is another whole story on his own, really. He was a wonderful, wonderful chap. He died at the beginning of last year, and he left an enormous hole in my life, because he's been part of my life, you know, from that date, really. I just always associated him with the Count House in particular.
Singing it every day. Got it all worked out, I just can't go wrong if the fish would only see it my way.
In the scheme of Cornish folk, he is nothing short of a legend. But to fellow folk musician and friend Mick Macready, he went by something else. I wanted to play you something from my chat with Sue.
Mick Macready called him Supreme Commander of the Folk Armies of the Southwest.
That was for John. And he's such a lovely man.
Yeah.
Oh, was. And I decided he should have something fitting his history and his experience. So yeah, the Supreme Commander.
So they used to sing, I mean, it was a smaller, much smaller, tighter group then in terms of that kind of folk music and socialising. And John used to sing in a pub called the Turk's Head in Penzance. And so Ian, being Ian, got wind of all of that. And so took the both of them on.
Yeah.
Mann was a local builder who'd been singing country and western songs in the pubs for ages.
I'm a fool, I must. I love you this way, and I've spent many sleepless
and that was it. So they were the residents. Mel Smith and Miles Wootton, they used to come down, friends of Ian Todd's, come down in the summer and enhance things a bit. They were very good cabaret singers. Very well. I mean, they were both teachers, I think. But what happened was I came down here with my friend, because we'd been making a bit of cash in Glasgow singing. But he got homesick after a week. And I was slightly, I thought my uppers really, so I thought I'll have to try and get some cash. Jonathan Cadrill, parents had a studio in St Ives, and Jonathan ran a folk club. We went there one night and we put on a good show for Jonathan, and it's very successful. And so at the end of it we said, how much do you pay? And he said, I don't pay.
Well, no, I'm a musician as well, not much has changed.
No, not much has changed. And then he said, if you want to get paid, try this place at Metallic on the cliffs. So I went up, because my mate had gone, found my way there. I thought, he's pulling my leg. He set me off on this, walked in the door, and there was John and Tell, like something like the Appalachians, singing away.
When this world is o'er, I'll fly away to this land where joys will never end. I'll fly away, oh Lordy, I'll fly away, Lordy, I'll fly away. When I die, hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away, just one.
I said to Ian Todd, look, I can give a couple of songs, so I'd got up and give a couple of Scotch-Irish songs. It was unaccompanied, which was the great thing then. Gave me 10 shillings or something. And he said, come back at the weekend, Friday and Saturday, give you a spot. So that was great.
We've so far met Ian Todd, the owner, Tell Mann, the builder who sang at the club in the early days, and then Des Hannigan and John the Fish, the original resident singers. And Des there mentioned Mel Smith and Miles Wootton, 2 teachers from London who came down to help through the summers. But then these folk clubs were as much about the audience and travelling artists as they were the residents. At the start, according to interviews with John the Fish, as few as 2 or 3 people would show up and they'd sit around, talk, play a few songs and say their goodbyes. But as word got round, more and more so-called itinerant folk musicians would turn up at the door, and they would be expected to play as much a part as the residents themselves, as you can hear in the following clip, with Mel and Miles warming up the crowd to the tune of Old Sea Song, Haul 'em Away.
The first one is called Haul 'em Away, and I sing a line that goes like this. La da 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 da, and you sing haul 'em away, da 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 da, haul 'em away, and da 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 da, haul 'em away. Well, sing it.
The audience liked to join in with it, so things with choruses went down very well, and they expected it, They were so appreciative and so encouraging that, young people starting were really encouraged to do it, and they were given a good listening to, and it's worth doing.
With a parson, haul away. Now she's got a little parson, haul away. With a holy hi ho, haul away. Oh, well, me fighting cocks now, haul away. Haul and split her blocks now, haul away. And we'll heave a lot, boys, haul away. And that'll be enough, boys, haul away. Try this one. It's called 100 Years Ago. And as you pull on the record, so you sing what you've got to sing, very loudly. It's really a shout, more or less. This has got 2 lines for you to sing. I go da 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 dee dee. You go oh yes oh da 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 dee dee dee. 100 years ago.
Where men go a-courting and maids are not cold, in the dear old county of Cornwall, Cornwall, Cornwall.
For 12 years, songs like this resounded at Cornwall's best-known folk club, Piper's Folk at Batallock, where Brenda ran the show. But for the past 14 years, she's been on the road as a professional, taking her music to various corners of the world, and with 25 albums to her credit. Back home at Ding Dong near Penzance to enjoy her birthday with husband John and the family, She's currently planning projects as diverse as a tour of Nova Scotia with a Celtic chorale and another with the French National Jazz Orchestra. In fact, it's in France that Brenda Wootton has achieved a level of national popularity that's difficult for her Cornish fans to grasp. She's played everywhere, from rock festivals to the grandest concert halls of Paris, and appears on French TV quiz shows with the status of a kind of grandma superstar.
Now, one curious thing's happened. Just as if to celebrate your birthday, we understand you've got a hit record in Japan. No, surely you can't have planned that.
No, I didn't plan it. It was about a year ago that Frances Lane...
I knew she had to have a biography. I knew this was too big a life to just forget. The tours abroad just grew and grew and grew. We've got some of her diaries from that period, and she would be doing 80-night tours around France, Germany, Belgium, Holland, Switzerland, all over Europe. She went to Australia 3 times, to Canada possibly twice, and all the time she's producing records, over 30 albums altogether. And one single that she produced ended up topping the charts in Japan.
Really?
Yeah, it was very strange.
Well, it's just amazing to hear, going from, the shy person that you described at the very start, not willing to even go up on stage, and there was obviously just all this potential, within her.
I don't think she had a very high opinion of herself at that point. Her character was always there, bubbling underneath. So I don't think it would have taken long for her to start getting involved in things.
Yeah.
I think for her to, suddenly realise that she had something to offer would have been a big boost, and it probably would have taken her a little while to get used to the idea. But once she did, boy, she went for it.
Yeah.
She did have an ego. I mean, she developed her ego as well as she developed her voice.
Counting stars alone. I'm counting stars alone. I lie and wonder why the moon still moves through the sky. I've got my eyes open wide. I've got my eyes open wide. The wind and the wall, but I don't see them at all. What is there calling me out? What is there calling me out? I've not a thing to prove, but somehow I can't seem to move. The candles burning down low. The candles burning down low. And as it burns away, I'm counting stars till the day.
And then, of course, it was John and I for quite a while, and then Brenda appeared on the scene, so she came in on it, and she used to sit in the audience humming away everybody's song, and finally we got her up on stage, and decided, we thought, well, she's pretty good. So she became a third resident. That was it.
There's one other person that we'd be remiss not to mention, with the Count House now gathering momentum as a folk club. The story goes that Michael Chapman came down to Cornwall from Bolton as something of a last resort. He'd just left a job as a photography teacher, and his marriage was on its last legs. He'd wound up in Cott Valley, the far west of the county, with no money and just enough petrol to get home. Having seen enough, he set off to drive through the night back home to Bolton, only for torrential rain to break out and foil his plans. Deciding he'd stay one more night, he noticed a sticker on the car in front that said Count House Folk Club, and stuck for a better plan, followed its route.
But apparently finally found the place, and it was pouring with rain, and they tried to charge him to go in, and he said, well, can't I play the guitar? So Des Hannigan said, one song.
I said, my God, he was dressed like Donovan. Everyone was dressing like Dylan and Donovan, all these wannabes. And of course he got up, and wow, it was like unbelievable, But I said, just do one. So Mike started to pack his guitar up. The place was going wild. I fought my way down, and you and Todd saying, wait.
By the time he got to the end of the one song, Des was running up saying, more.
He just came off the street, really. And he just played. He'd play a medley and he'd go into something else, something different, some jazz, Beatles song, something else he made up, And in the end, people just go, we all
Desperation sits just like a friend upon the floor. My pictures are all torn around my feet. Mr. Madness points his eyes, a finger from his chair, and an angry crowd is gathering in the streets to take my time away, to take my time away.
Mike sadly passed away in 2021, but from that moment he lived for music, touring all over the world and producing more than 20 studio albums. As you can hear from this interview again with Mick McCready, a close friend, it all started on that night at the Count House.
I mean, this is, always will be to me and Andrew, a magical place. This, as I said earlier, this is the very spot that my life changed immeasurably.
Everything started from here.
Yeah. I had no idea what to do with the rest of my life, and I walked in here because it was raining, and I offered to play, and they gave me a job for the rest of the summer, and I've been at it ever since. I never had a plan to be a professional musician. I never thought people like me could be a professional musician, let alone write songs and get clean away with it.
One thing that possibly can't be stated enough is just how far off the beaten track we are. These days, the A30 road allows you to zoom from one end of Cornwall to the other, and this still takes over an hour given just how big the territory is. Back then, the journey from Newquay to Batalac would have been impossibly long, and in many cases depended on how well you managed to hitch a ride. In fact, the journey for John Sleep was so long that in the end he decided to open up his own folk club that was closer to home. That's a story for another day, but here he is describing those trips.
And we used to go every Friday from here. Terrifically long drive because it was the old roads.
Yeah.
All the way down to Batalac, and that's where it all started, Batalac. We used to go through Hale and through Camborne and through Trenouth, goodness me, and then through Penzance and on to St Just. It was just a long way. Didn't think about it at the time, because sometimes we do 2 sessions and be late back, and hopefully there'd be a chip shop in Camborne, still open if we were lucky. That was a treat.
Is a gem that's bright and rare. In your eyes I see forever. All my dreams are resting there.
And now here's Carrie Langford, who was married to John the Fish for over 50 years. But that all started as a 16-year-old when she and her cousin hitchhiked their way down to Battalloch, chasing rumours of a growing folk scene.
66, I was 17, and she must have been 19. And we hitched down to the Count House. And the thing is, when you were at the club, you would just say to whoever was running the evening, I've got to get back to so-and-so. Can anybody give me a lift back? And, people would give you a lift back part of the way. And I know when my cousin and we were obviously going from the Count House at Battalloch right the way to nearly to Newquay. And, people would just take you part of the way, and then you just stick your thumb out and get a lift a bit further. And, we just did it and didn't have any problems. I think once we got a lift with some policemen, actually. Not in a sort of, oh, you're not doing this, we'll get you. They just said, oh, we're going that way, we'll give you a lift part of the way.
In your love, you're always best. Pour your gold on my face, neck, and chest.
I wanted to experience for myself the magic of driving out to the westernmost point of England, not knowing who I might find there, and creating an evening together. The Count House has not been a folk club for many years now, but a monthly folk night is held to keep this history alive. I found my way up the famous bumpy farm track and headed inside to find 3 women and 2 guitars all round a table. A few more regulars rolled in, as well as 2 first-timers, like me, visiting Cornwall for the weekend from up north. We sipped our teas and went round the table one by one, taking it in turns to play something. What was striking was how much history we all learnt as people explained the stories and roots behind the piece of music they had chosen. Just as I was revelling in this and enjoying the sight of the sun on the water, it was my turn to play. About Cornish folk clubs in the 60s. And so this is obviously hallowed ground. And so just when I saw that I had the chance to come and sing here and add to the history in some small way, I was really excited to do that. So I've brought a couple of things. The first thing I'm going to sing, I'm sure it's been sung here many times over the years. Are you going to Scarborough Fair? Parsley, sage, rosemary and thyme. Remember me to one who lived there. She once was a true love of mine. Tell her to make me a Cambridgeshire. Parsley, sage, rosemary and thyme. Without no seam or needlework, and then she'll be a true love of mine.
When you were on the stage, you'd be looking out the window at the sunset, and he would have a break in the middle of the evening so that everybody could go out and look at the sunset.
Over the water?
Yeah, over the sea.
Yeah, I mean, they'd all go out and stand on the cliff edge and look out across the sea at the sunset.
Tell her to find me an acre of land, parsley, sage, rosemary and thyme, between the salt water and the sea strand, and then she'll be a true love of mine. Are you going to Scarborough Fair? Parsley, sage, rosemary and thyme, remember me to one who lived there. She once was a true love of mine. She once was a true love of mine. So I guess the question is, why does any of this matter? We've already heard through Michael Chapman and others the way in which involvement in somewhere like the Count House can change the course of your life. But I'm also wondering what this all means in light of the Cornwall that Merv Davey described in the 1500s, a Cornwall that's partly lost to history. This is the mid-60s, and the modern Cornish nationalism movement, in truth, had not really got going yet. But as time went on, and black and white flags started to appear all through the region, figures like Brenda Wootton began to explore how music might play a part in this burgeoning movement.
When Brenda started singing, all she was singing really was songs that she'd grown up hearing her family sing. So Lamorna was one of them, and The Old Grey Duck, and Camborne Hill, and there were a lot of local songs. But she needed an accompanist, and so Fish would play the guitar for her. And she'd also met Richard Gendall. Richard was a huge influence on her life. He was a Cornish bard and a language expert, Cornish language expert. And she was asked to sing at a concert in Pan-Celtic Festival in Ireland to represent Cornwall, singing in the Cornish language, and she didn't know anything about Cornish language. It was probably she'd only just heard of it in the last year. And so Richard was asked to write a song for her, which he did. And she was so blown away by the fact that we had our own language. It, completely blew her mind. So she and Richard formed a partnership in as much as he needed somebody to perform his songs. She wanted to sing songs in the Cornish language now that she'd discovered them. He ended up, over the course of about 15 to 20 years, writing over 460 songs for her. But he was heavily involved in the start-up of Mebion Kernow, the Sons of Cornwall, the political movement of Mebion Kernow. And it was Richard that discovered in a book the Cornish flag. Rediscovered. It had been forgotten about. In the 1920s, nobody knew about any Cornish flag. In the 30s, I think he found it in the 40s. And in the 40s, he was running around Lanson, putting up posters with the Cornish flag He said they were regarded a bit like the IRA or something. You know, people thought they were some kind of political activist movement that were going to, I don't know, riot or do something. But it was Richard who actually discovered the Cornish flag. I mean, it's quite phenomenal, really.
And in the next half an hour, I'd like to show you some of the things that make up the land I love.
I never thought before how much my country belonged to me, till I had gone many miles from my home by the sea. Hedges aflame with ferns, little white farm out of all the corn. You belong.
That's my song. That sums up exactly how I feel. It was written for me. Do you know, it wasn't until I went away singing 8 years ago that I came to realise how much I love Cornwall. I've seen beautiful places all over, in Germany, in France, Australia, but it's that special sort of magic combination, the people, the ruggedness of the land, the independence. We've got our old traditions, health and flora, beautiful dancing every May, and there's the Padstow Arbios.
And you're talking about, you know, can music belong to a place? And I think in Cornwall it's a very good place to be exploring that question, because you've got a very distinctive history, you've got a distinctive landscape, a distinctive culture which is all around us, the place names, the people and so on. And it doesn't matter where you come from. When you arrive in Cornwall, you are surrounded by this. And if you live in Cornwall, you're part of this. Certainly, with the language revivals, singing and songs are a major part of it. And Cornish is a very natural language for singing in.
Nu hale brujon en vis, am devas pel reseth, and bu has in praise near dos trekens under Dave.
Pure to that, Brenda. Pure to that.
So that's my non-exhaustive history of the Count House Folk Club in Cornwall, a phenomenon that birthed important cultural figures like John the Fish, Brenda Wootton and Michael Chapman. Better still, it might have played an important part in the development of the modern Cornish psyche. And if we're being really cheeky, it might even have been the British folk revival's most treasured venue. I'm Dylan Trenouth, your half Cornish host, and this has been Kernow.
A is for handsome, which we think we are.
Yes, well, nobody else would they? And B is for bussa, a get Cornish jar.
C is for cream, which we'd like a lot.
Yes, our cream is that thick, you could comb the cloth.
D is for Daiji, down St Ives, don't you see?
Yes.
And E is for thee, and for me, and for she.
Well, she had no E.
Well, yes, she is, because if I was with you and I saw her coming down the street,
Yes.
I could say to her, where's off to now, I wonder?
Oh, yes.
And F is for ferrens that did get up at the fair.
Yes, they'd go a bit sticky, but the flavour is rare.
G is for gulls as they'd fly across the bar.
And if you're underneath them, then watch out, my gar.
Here, you can't say things like that.
Can I?
H is for Evie, you know, a get slab of cake.
Oh, yes. Old Dawn currants like Mauler to be.
Hey, Samson.
And I is for Edna.
Oh, Edna, that isn't very good, is it?
Oh, my
Edna.
dear soul, I can't think all this here rhyming to drive me to drink.
J is for Janner, you know, our cousin Jack.
Oh, yes, you give me some cheek and he give me one back.
Yes.
Here, K is for clunk, you know, when you'd swallow.
Oh, yes, and L is for larrups to get lout of a fella. M is for mother, for whom we'd all care.
And N is for nothing that's going nowhere.
O is for ore. No, not that ore.
Oh.
You know, the copper and the tin that did
Oh.
dig down the mine midst the darkness and the din.
You're very profound.
Oh, poetic. D.
Yes.
P is for one thing only.
What's that?
Pastas galore.
My dear, when I've had a pasty, I don't want nothing no more.
Q is the queue where we patiently stood.
As for 2 penn'orth of butter and a bit of hog's pud.
R is for Ray. Now there's a sweet bit of fish.
Yes. Boiled titties and butter to make a rich dish,
Handsome.
doesn't
And
it?
S is for saffron and Sunday school treat.
Yes. Remember the banner we carved in the street?
Well, maybe you do, but I don't.
Oh.
T is for Torag. You know, all salty and rye.
When I've had some of that, I could drink the sea dry.
And U is for us.
Well, we to say we.
Well, better than your, isn't it?
Well, I suppose so.
And V is for varmint.
Now, C's a prayer told, is he?
And W is for withy, for making
Oh.
pots for the
And
crabs.
sticking up chimneys when cleaning the slabs.
That's right. And
X
X marks the spot of a hauled Cornish cross, now covered with lichen and soft silky moss.
And Y is for...
You!
Yes, you'd hear that in the street. Now that's a true Cornish greeting, wherever you to be.
Only one thing I can think of for Z, dear.
What's that,
Zenner.
Oh, my dear life, let's go home and add dinner.
Hey, come on, let's go.
Here's another song from the West Indies. It's called Fan Me, Soldier Man, Fan Me. Fan me, soldier man, fan me. Fan me, soldier man, fan me. Fan me, soldier man, fan me, oh. Gal, your character gone. Way do you see the lace up, stays up? Way do you see the lace up, stays up? Way do you see the lace up, stays up? Gal, your character gone. Way do you see the shawl up, shawl up? Way do you see the shawl up, shawl up? Way do you see the shawl up, shawl up? Gal, your character gone. Sake a coolie man bangle, sake a coolie man bangle, sake a coolie man silver bangle, gal, your character gone. I found her all of the evening, I found her all of the night, I found her most of the next day, was her character gone. Fan me, soldier man, fan me. Fan me, soldier man, fan me. Fan me, soldier man, fan me, oh. Gal, your character gone. Fan me, soldier man, gal, your character gone. Fan me, soldier man, gal, your character gone.
Down in Albert Square, I never shall forget her eyes. they shone like diamonds, and the evening it was wet, 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 and her hair hung down in curls. She was a charming rover. We rode all night in the pale moonlight, away down to Lamona. And now I'll sing to you about a maiden fair I met the other evening in the corner of the square. She had a dark and roving eye, she was a charming rover. We rode all night in the pale moonlight, away down to Lamona. 'Twas down in Albert Square, I never shall forget. Her eyes, they shone like diamonds, and the evening it was wet, 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 and her hair hung down in curls. She was a charming rover. We rode all night in the pale moonlight, away down to Lamona. As we got in the cab, I asked her for her name, and when she gave it me, well, mine it was the same. So I lifted up her veil, for her face was covered over. To my surprise, it was my wife I took down to Lamona. 'Twas down in Albert Square, I never shall forget. Her eyes, they shone like diamonds, and the evening it was wet, 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 and her hair hung down in curls. She was a charming rover. We rode all night in the pale moonlight, away down to Lamona. She said, I know thee well, I know thee all the while, I know thee in the dark, and I did it for a lark, 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 and for that lark you'll pay, for the taking of my honour. You'll pay the fare, I do declare, away down to Lamona. 'Twas down in Albert Square, I never shall forget. Her eyes, they shone like diamonds, and the evening it was wet, 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 and her hair hung down in curls. She was a charming rover. We rode all night in the pale moonlight, away down to Lamona. There is a city way down in Cornwall, it's standing where the wooded river valleys meet.
This program has been brought to you by Resonance FM. If you like what you heard, please support our work by making a donation at resonancefm.com/donate.